the day didn't start off right. He had a just one of those days things didn't feel right. When I walked in the dressing room, still didn't feel right. I saw Invader and Carlos and Zebekiah sitting in this little cubbyhole like deal where it's a baseball stadium. So what that little cubbyhole was for the manager really. And they were sitting in there and they were talking. And I went and sat down in the corner and Brody sat right beside me. I sat right in the very back corner so I could watch the whole dressing room. Because I never turned my back on anybody in Puerto Rico because it was just the way I felt. And the vibe became so intense. I'm thinking, what the fuck? So I had to get out of the dressing room. I left for no more than 5 minutes, 7 minutes. And then I went to the dugout. I was watching the crowd come in. And then I said, well, I'm going to go back. And when I got back, it already happened. I was walking up some steps and I heard it get louder and louder and some commotion. I said, what the hell's going on? And then I walked in and saw Brody laying on the floor. And then, of course, I said, what happened? And they said, you know. First they said, Jose stabbed Brody. I said, who? Jose stabbed Brody. Jose who? They said, because everybody's named Jose in Puerto Rico.
Right.
They said, Invader. Invader stabbed Brody. I mean, that was a lot. Because a dressing room is your sanctuary if you're a wrestler. That's your safe spot. And to think something like that, yeah, fights is one thing. But somebody stabbing another guy, unheard of.
So Invader had already left the scene, basically?
No, he hadn't left. When I came back, Invader was still in the shower. And Zebekiah was in the shower. And they were screaming. Of course, when you get in those showers, the ceramic showers, you know, sound echoes and bounces.
Yeah, for people that don't know that shower, there's like a flipping door that flips open to it, and it's like a brick shower room.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Yeah.
Ceramic. I call it ceramic.
Yeah.
And the door is not a clear door. It's a translucent door that light will come through, but you really can't see anybody's there till you get up close. But they were in the shower, and I heard them screaming. Even if they were speaking Spanish, but even if they had been speaking English, it would be hard to understand what they were saying because it was echoing.
Right.
And Brody was on the floor, and everybody they didn't know what to do, and he's trying to call an ambulance, and the ambulance didn't get there, or the medical personnel didn't get there till 45 minutes later. So he laid on the floor of that dressing room for at least 45 minutes before they even got there.
Was Tony Atlas, we've interviewed him a couple of times, and he said he was also really upset in the dressing room at this time. And
he was.
A lot of people were sitting around, going over their matches, acting like there wasn't someone actually dying on the floor.
Well, we didn't know he was dying.
Okay.
We didn't know he was dying. We didn't know how bad he was hurt. See, nobody knew. Tony got up, and, you know, Brody was a big guy, 300, right at 300 or maybe 310, 320. But when you put him on a gurney and you got to go up some steps,
yeah,
it takes some strength to get him up the steps. Tony, the little Puerto Rican paramedics, excuse me, they couldn't get him up, and so Tony just picked him up and took him out.
Okay.
He took the back, and he got in the ambulance with him and went down to the hospital with him. So when he came back about an hour later, probably, and I don't know how he got back.
The story he told us is he was throwing a temper tantrum in the hospital, and they wanted him out of there, so they said that Brody was probably going to be okay. And I forget exactly the mode of transport to get him back, but...
Well, I don't know how he got back,
yeah. And
I've heard the same story, and he's told me the same story. But when he got back, he was upset. But for him saying that guys were sitting around, going around their matches, they had come to work, is all I can say. We knew he was hurt. We didn't know how badly he was hurt. And actually the Invader came back too. And started conducting business like whatever happened, happened.
So he was still booking the matches?
Yeah, he was still booking the matches. He left, and he was gone for about an hour.
Yeah.
And then he came back. But I think he was back by the time And then Tony got there, and then Tony saw him. That's when he went off. And he said, don't you guys know what's fucking going on? A man is fucking, he's gonna fucking die here. And Invader was conducting business, and he heard Tony, but Invader's brother, he tell you about his brother?
No.
Invader's brother's in the dressing room too. And I think somebody heard him say to somebody else about Tony, he says, I guess Tony Atlas wants the same thing.
I think he said Sika told him the next day that he's probably be a wise idea for him to get off the island.
Who told him that?
I think it was Sika.
Could have. But the next day we had a big meeting, and we all didn't go to the town the next day. Nobody went. I don't know. I don't think it was a coordinated boycott, but nobody went. All the Puerto Rican guys went, but none of the Americans went. So they couldn't have a show. And that was a sold-out stadium too, or sold-out building. But we didn't go. And we had a meeting. I forgot whose room it was in, and the hotel we were staying in. And somebody brought up, I thought it could have been me. I said, wait a minute, a man, and we already knew that he had died. And I said, wait a minute, a murder happened here, guys. They got to be investigating this. So we made a few calls around to somebody, and it got to the police station, and yeah, they were investigating it, and they wanted to talk to us. So the rest of that night, the detectives came over, and they took Tony first, and he went and gave his deposition, and he was gone for they took him at 5 o'clock. He didn't get back till 10. I went, damn, did they kill him or what? Then they came and got me. Then they slowly took everybody through the night to give their deposition. And they took it from there, and he was arrested Tuesday, never spent a day in jail. His bail was made. He just went down there and presented himself to the magistrate, I guess, in Puerto Rico. He never spent a day in jail. I don't even think he was even in handcuffs. And
was it even a news story there?
oh, a big story.
Oh, okay. So
huge story.
The public knew about it.
Huge story. It was front page news. But I knew that he had been found not guilty before I got the subpoena. I had just heard it that morning that the jury had declared him not guilty.
They had deliberated for an hour or something.
An hour, and they had lunch. And somebody said, well, how could that happen? Well, I'll tell you how it could happen. Brody, they used Brody's character as a wild man against him. Because everybody on that jury had watched wrestling. And this is what we're talking about, hardcore fans believe it. Well, you know, Puerto Rico's pretty hardcore. And you didn't hear that wrestling is fake in Puerto Rico so much. Because they thought it was it was blood and guts, and it was. But when they sit on that jury, the defense attorneys argued that Brody was a drug head, and he was out of his mind, and he was a psycho, and he was dangerous, and he was menacing. And so when they saw that, defense attorney describe him like that, they believed it. Now, Jose Gonzales, the Invader, was basically a national hero. So, okay, and you got 12 Puerto Ricans on a jury, and it was an American guy that they thought could be dangerous. And it was never in doubt that Jose Gonzales killed Brody. That was never in doubt. What they were arguing really was it self-defense. And so the jury determined, yeah, it was self-defense because regardless of how you feel about it, that's how they judged it.
But no one seems to argue that Brody did not have a knife when he walked into
Brody
that
did not have a knife. He had no reason to have a knife.
He thought he was going to get booking instructions.
Well, I also heard that they owed him a lot of money.